So much like button controls, it's going to be rare that you're going to create an application that doesn't make some use of text or displaying of text. So it's good to get to know the various text controls that are available in Android. So I've just created a blank project called text controls. And let's go ahead and go into our main layout. And let me just increase the size of this a little bit. So by default, it puts down a text view, which is the default way to display text. So now there's a bunch of properties on here which we can set to modify some of the properties. So I'm going to come in here. Let me just increase that so you can see it a little bit. And we'll click on our text view. And let's scroll down. And if we set the text property, right now it's pulling it out of the strings.xml file. We can hard code this to anything. We just say, hi there. And now we've modified the text. But what if we want to modify some of the properties? Well, we can change the typeface. And in Android, you have a few options. You can choose normal, sans, which is obviously a sans serif. We can change it to monospace if we wanted a monospace style font, much like you have in your code editors. We can change the text size. Now, here's an important point about providing the correct size for text. So you don't want to put in pixel values because when we're dealing with multiple screen sizes, and we're going to get to that in a future movie, it's going to be important that you use device independent units. So when we're dealing with the layout widths and size of elements, we use a layout or a size of device independent pixels. And basically what this is, it represents a single pixel on 160 dpi screen, but it's going to actually scale that up nicely up and down based on the user's device. For text, we use something called scale independent pixels, and we provide it as SP. So whatever we want the text size, SP. And what this means is not only will this be scaled up correctly based on the user's screen density, but it will also take into account their preferences about text size. If set in their preferences to have larger size text, this is going to respect that. And of course, it's the recommended approach for giving dimensions for text. Okay, we can also come through and provide text color. Now this just takes in regular hexadecimal values. So let's say we just wanted to make it white. We've now made it white, and we can go through and change a whole slew of properties that you can see here. Okay, so now we've done this. Now let's say that we had a link in here. So I'll give a link to, let's just make it go to Google. Let's say we wanted to add hyperlinks to this. Well, we can actually have it auto hyperlink, which will automatically put a link in here. If we go to the auto link property, we can set it to automatically detect any of these types of links. Well, I'm just going to do all, and we can see already it's actually created a hyperlink to this that will actually work when it's on the user's device. So if we want to automatically turn links into actual links, we can do this, which is actually a nice time-saving feature. But when it comes to a text view, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's a view that's going to allow you to display text content. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of that. Now I'm going to show you the edit text view. So I'm going to drag this in, and this is exactly what it sounds like. This is a control that allows you to display text, but then also have the user be able to edit that text. One of the things with this properties panel, it doesn't always update itself when you click. So you can do show in and then properties to force it to update itself. So for this one, I can come in, and for the text, now I'm just going to do some button mashing here just to put in a bunch of text. And we can see what happens. So already it's set to be a multi-line text field. If we take this and we make it fill the entire layout container, you'll notice that by default, it's centered vertically. So how do we actually change this? Well, we can set the gravity property, which I showed you when we talked about layout containers. So I can set gravity here, and I can set it to top left. And now we can see the text is now aligned to the top left. So again, by setting the gravity property, we can set how the text is going to be laid out inside of this control. Now, another thing that's important when it comes to this is the input type. And if we click on the input type property and open this up, we have all these different options. Now, what does this do? So this actually will, in many cases, provide a certain type of keyboard to the user. So if we're dealing with text URI, depending on the device and the manufacturer, if they put their own custom skin over it, but it will provide a keyboard specifically meant for entering in URLs. We have text password to display things as a password. number, which is going to pop up the number keyboard on the phone. So again, you have a lot of power here by setting the input type, and it can really help because you're not just going to give the default keyboard to the user. Let's say I have this text and I wanted to read it in my Java file and do something with it. So I'm going to go into my main.java file, just maximize this. Let's get a reference to that edit text. Call it ET, find view by ID. Make sure we cast it. I mentioned this in an earlier movie, but we can't just use the getText property. Well, we can, but it actually returns an editable object, not a string. So an important thing to remember, if we're wanting to get the actual just raw string, what's inside of there, we have to say edit text, which gets us that editable object, but then we say toString. And this is going to turn the editable object just into a raw string. This is something that I've seen a lot of people have trouble with, but it's actually really simple. Just use the toString method to turn it into a raw string so that you can actually use it. So now there are other text controls. The primary other ones are these autocomplete text views. And what this is basically a text field. And when we drag this in, it looks just like an edit text view. The difference is you can provide an array of string values that you want to autocomplete this text view. So we're not going to get to this in this course, but just wanted to highlight that it was here. So basically, if you had an array of every country name in the world and the user started to type something in here, you could use that to provide autocomplete options to the user. So just a really nice usability feature. The multi-autocomplete text view is pretty much the same, except that it can do it on a per word basis. In the autocomplete text view, it's matching everything that's in that text view. Here, we can actually do it just by the individual words. So yeah, not a tremendous amount of stuff to cover with text fields. They're pretty self-explanatory, but of course, most of the time you're going to be using text views and edit text view in your application.